Hi everyone, my name is Nishant Yadav. I am a PhD student at Northeastern University, and today I am going to talk about our paper titled Machine Learning for Robust Identification of Complex Nonlinear Dynamical Systems with Application to Earth System Modeling. It was reported in 2019 that some of the latest generation of global climate models were projecting substantially higher future warming, described in terms of net temperature increase when CO2 emissions are doubled over pre-industrial levels. As the modeling community looked into it, a possible reason for such increased warming emerged in how cloud processes and related feedbacks are expressed in these models. Historically, incorporating such small-scale processes in climate models has remained a major challenge, having implications not only for the direct model outputs, but also the future policy decisions based on them. Climate models use coupled equations rooted in the laws of physics to simulate the interactions that drive Earth's climate. However, given the complexity of the climate system, not all processes can be explicitly resolved. Example, cloud convection. Either because the underlying physics is unknown or they occur at scales smaller than the model grid size. As a result, models use parameterizations to include the effect of such subgrid processes. Traditionally, these parameters are hand-tuned by climate experts until the model behavior aligns with observations. And yet, despite the improving knowledge and fidelity of our climate models, these parameterization schemes remain one of the major sources of uncertainty, and configuring them remains a grand challenge. It is hypothesized that machine learning may offer an alternative data-driven approach for learning these parameterization schemes. Recent studies in this regard have used machine learning methods such as random forest and deep learning methods for estimating the parameters involved using either observation data or outputs from very high resolution models where such subgrid processes are solved for explicitly. Principally, this leads to a hybrid modeling approach where the large-scale dynamics is physics-driven and the small-scale processes are learned using data-driven methods. While the machine learning methods adopted were geared towards calculating the point estimates of these parameters, there is a need to go beyond and also quantify the uncertainty associated, especially when the overall system, such as climate in this case, is inherently chaotic. Second, there is a need to explore data-efficient learning methods as massive training data, which is almost a prerequisite for state-of-the-art deep learning methods, may not be readily available. Therefore, in this work, we propose Gaussian processes as a viable method which may overcome these limitations. Briefly, Gaussian processes belong to the class of non-parametric kernel-based methods. Instead of inferring a distribution over the parameters of a single function, Gaussian processes can be used to infer distributions over multiple functions directly. Gaussian processes carry two major advantages. First, the posterior distribution provides uncertainty bounds in addition to the point estimates of the target variable. Second, since it's non-parametric, there is no pre-imposed structural complexity, and the method naturally obeys Occam's razor. Another advantage is the possibility of including prior knowledge by carefully crafting the kernel functions. However, GPs also remain computationally expensive with a cubic time complexity as they need to take the entire training data, as they need to consider the entire training data every time they make a prediction, which prohibits them from being used on large data sets. Moving on to the case study, we are using the Lawrence 96 nonlinear dynamical system, which is a commonly used testbed for parameterization studies. The system is a simplified one-dimensional model around a latitude circle, which resembles the nonlinear behavior of a climate system. Just like a climate model, it includes large-scale variables which are explicitly resolved. Each large-scale variable is associated with a number of subgrid processes which are coupled using the coupling parameter h, as shown in the red box. The goal is then to learn the parameter h as a function of the large-scale process x. To prepare the training data, we first generate multiple true simulations of L96 for different parameter configurations. From each time series that is generated, we extract a temporal snapshot which makes one input data point. The target variable corresponding to the input is the parameter h used to generate the time series. We conduct a total of 8 experiments with 200 simulations each for different configurations of the parameter h. For each experiment, we vary the number of variables x and y, external forcing, and the temporal regime from where the training data is generated. The main difference between the experiments is that a higher forcing causes more chaotic behavior in L96, while the true training regimes allow us to evaluate Gaussian processes under different levels of nonlinearity. Using Gaussian processes and other baseline methods, we first estimate the probability distribution of the parameter h. Broadly, we observe that GPs outperform other methods when the training data is generated from the less nonlinear temporal regime. However, as the temporal variability in the training data increases, the performance of Gaussian processes declines and converges with that of the fully connected neural network. For the extreme case of large forcing combined with nonlinear training regime, all methods seem to lose their predictive power, as can be seen in the plot in red box. We also calculate the error growth in the predicted trajectory of x, and similar to before, we observe that error growth for Gaussian processes is consistently lower in the less variable training regime, while it is higher for the more nonlinear training data. Lastly, the figure on the right side plots the estimated parameter h along with the confidence bound. We can see that uncertainty increases for higher forcing and nonlinear training regime, which aligns with our previous results. Overall, we can say that Gaussian processes tend to outperform other methods when the training regime is less nonlinear. However, it doesn't perform worse when the training regime is highly nonlinear. In conclusion, we would like to say that it is an early work in exploring machine learning methods for parameterization in climate modeling. We attempt to make a case for Bayesian approaches such as Gaussian processes as a viable method under small data constraints and where uncertainty quantification is critical in addition to point estimates. A future line of work includes scaling Gaussian processes for training on larger datasets. Thank you.